Thank you for turning to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at the 4th edition rules for Gamma World. These were out in 1992. A quick note, if anybody has not heard, unfortunately earlier this week, Jim Ward, the originator of Metamorphosis Alpha, which then became Gamma World, so the originator of both, passed away at the age of 72. I never met Jim, I didn't know him, but I've enjoyed his stuff for years, and I'm sure the rest of the gaming world joins me in mourning the loss of quite a creative light, one that goes all the way back to some of the earliest days of D&D. We would not have the Dromage Ocean without Jim Ward, or Dromage the Wizard for that matter. But today we're going to take a look at the Gamma World rules from 1992. This is the 4th edition set. And there you go, the new Gamma World game. This one goes back to basics. We've got a slightly different combat system, but it gets away from the serious, hard science attempt of 3rd edition. And we open the rules, and we see the credit by Jim Nesmith and James M. Ward. So there you have it. I don't know how much James Ward was involved in the actual writing of this book. I think it's more of an inspirational kind of thing and maybe some checks here and there. He does do a nice forward for it. By this time, he was Director of Creative Services at TSR, again in 1992. So we take a look at how this is set up. This is one book, and it is everything you need to play the game. This book cost a whopping $20 in 1992. And my oldest son was only 2 years old, so $20 was pretty precious with a 2-year-old in the house. But I said, what the heck? I wanted to get it. My wife's always a sport, and so we scraped together and got the $20, and I picked this up. So here we have the table of contents, of course, all the stuff of how to play the game. The introduction. One of the things, we get a short history of where Gamma World came from in approximately the year 2200. Cataclysm rocked the earth for reasons long forgotten. And then we get about this game. It's a post-Holocaust game, and reality, actually lack of reality would be a better title for this section. So this is a strictly fun game. It's not about realism. It's not about science fiction. It's science fantasy. And that's one of the things I loved about it. I like my mutants created by radiation, darn it. Don't give me other stuff. I want radiation. I'm a kid of the 60s. I grew up on all those monster movies on Saturday afternoon. I still love them. So that's how I like them. Godzilla, big old radioactive monster. Gotta like it. So here we go. We get a quick look at some of the terms to be used in this, how serious you want to take the game. The mood can be, as they put it, wild and wahoo. And honestly, that's how we played Gamma World. Gamma World was always the game that didn't have alignments, didn't have restrictions on your behaviors, and it was the game where everybody kind of let their hair down and just had fun. And it continues to be that for us to this day. By the way, interestingly, this is the edition we still play at my table. I have run Gamma World since 1992. Come to think of it, I don't think I've been a player in Gamma World 4th. Now that I think about it, I think I've only been the Forever DM on it. But we've played this since 1992, and I don't see myself moving away from it. So there we have character generation, how you're going to generate it. 3 to 18, 3 dice 6, and there's different ways to do it. You choose your character type, pure strain human, altered human, mutated animal. In this edition, I believe you could be a plant as well. Some recycled art from earlier stuff. That was always kind of a Gamma World thing, but I guess you have to forgive it. I like this edition, so I guess I'll forgive it. We got a nice look at base animal stock list. They did a little bit to support this in Dragon Magazine, gave us some interesting articles, but not much. This did not turn out to be the seller that they had wanted it to be, so they didn't support it a ton. We got a couple of modules and some other source books, but that was really it. Yeah, there's the sentient plants that you can be. And then we got to look at mutations. I love mutations. They're some of my favorite things in Gamma World. You want to go ahead and have your mutated animals or whatever, you roll on your mutations. There are a couple of different ways we do mutations. Generally, we'll just roll randomly and see what lands. Sometimes if a player has a specific idea in mind for a character type, then I'll go ahead and I'll let him just kind of pick mutations. I won't let anybody build a super character, but I will let them get ones they want to build the character type they want. If they want somebody who can telekinetically fly or has magnekinesis, things like that. The mutations I'm not going to dwell on because my son Adam and I are talking about doing at least one video on our favorite mutations. Adam ran Gamma World for his friend, still does, but ran it a lot in college. And they got some really wild and wacky games going. So he wants to kind of be in on this. So we may sit down and do at least one, if not a couple of videos on the various mutations in Gamma World. Also, one thing they introduced in 4th edition, they'd kind of flirted with in earlier editions, are character classes. And this was okay, but honestly, I don't like character classes in Gamma World. Adam, on the other hand, loves them. So your character classes were Enforcer, Examiner, or Esper, I'm sorry, Examiner, and Scout. So only 4 classes, and the only one that isn't intuitive of what it's about is Examiner. They're the ones that are really good about examining artifacts from the ancients. I'm not a fan of character classes. I've never used this. Adam has and swears it makes the game much better. Each to his own, as I say. So there's common skills, attribute modifiers. So if I have a 16 strength, I'm getting +2 damage on a swing. The armor class in this game goes from 0 up, which would be something that would come in also in 3rd edition D&D. Might have been in a few other things that I wasn't familiar with, but I first encountered it here. And I like the 0 up. That's one of the weaknesses, in my opinion, of the original D&D system, AD&D, is that it goes from 10 being the worst armor class to -10 being the best. That really limits the armor class. On the other hand, 3rd edition D&D showed us that having an armor class 95 is kind of silly. But anyway, we're continuing on, how to advance in levels, your starting equipment, and then a description of all the mutations. I like that all the mutations are described. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because whether Adam and I make the video together or I make the video by myself, I am going to cover the mutations. And then we go to the play of the game, the distance, the rounds. 1 round is 10 seconds, 6 rounds equals a minute. All this is pretty standard if you've played any kind of role-playing to this point, which I had. I've been playing 12 years before I bought this particular book. I'm not going to go through each and every page of this book. There's some more recycled art, but excellent recycled art. That's a Death Machine from some of the 3rd edition modules. We get a look at some force fields, Duralloy, which is their super metal, their adamantium, if you will. We get a look at various tech levels. As an old Traveler fan, I love tech levels. Then we're going to look at equipment. Now, the one thing I remember reading when I was reading this book for the first time and going through it and getting ready to prep my first game, they took some of the equipment and some of the weaponry and they held it out for later supplements. Common thing to do in game design, I know, but I was a little ticked about that. You had to buy the other stuff to get some of the more famous Mark V blasters, Mark VII blasters, that sort of stuff for your Gamma World game. So I kind of was a little cheesed about that, but I lived. Okay, some more recycled artwork. We got some new artwork here for describing the stuff. That was one area what Gamma World wasn't great about, was artwork for the items that you were using. So I was pretty excited to see that here. Again, in 92, pre-internet, didn't have a lot. So we get some grenades. We get the Black Ray Life. Oh, we get the Mark V blaster, Mark VII blaster. Just there were a few things missing that I thought were key to Gamma World that weren't in here. We get the smart grenades. We get flit cars. We get all kinds of fun stuff. We get robots and how robots interact with characters, how you damage a robot. Some recycled robot art, unfortunately. And then Cryptic Alliances, always the backbone of Gamma World. Love me a good Cryptic Alliance. They make great bad guys or great good guys, depending on which one you're dealing with. I've taken a look at a few of these already. I think I'll take a look at a few more. Then we come to the creatures, the monster manual part of it. And again, recycled art from previous editions. I don't mean to grumble about that, by the way. I understand why they did. They had perfectly serviceable art for these creatures, so why recreate the wheel? So I get that. And then we go to how to run a campaign. And another cover? Yeah, some more art. But gorgeous art, don't get me wrong. And then at the back here, you had a map of America, the Gamma World America. And I chose this. This is actually my son Adam's copy, and I chose to use his because he punched his, and I wanted to show the map. So there is the map that came in the back. Mine, I had never seen until Adam punched his, because I left mine unpunched. I just used an older map from older editions of Gamma World, but this is pretty neat. We live at the tip of Lake Mitch Gloom, Lake Michigan, Gary, Indiana. I live just west of Gary, really, in a good 10, 20 miles, but still, if Gary's underwater, and my house would be right about where it says port in Port Alar. So Fermi, the Fermi Lab, the Burning River, that's probably the Chicago River coming up out of there, the Kank River, the Kankakee. So it's just kind of interesting that our area is featured so prominently. I always like that, and it's always been one of the draws of Gamma World for me. So there you have it, just a quick look at Gamma World 4th edition. I had intended to do this. I've been working on this, just quick run through for the channel for a couple of weeks now. And then the news of Jim Ward's passing, I thought, well, yeah, I better get this guy out as an homage. This is a guy who brought us a lot of fun stuff, a lot of imaginative play. And I've always loved Gamma World. I've loved Gamma World since 1980 when I first became acquainted with it. It was the very first game I played after I played Dungeons and Dragons. I played D&D starting in April of 1980, and by summer of 80, I owned a copy of Gamma World and was playing and running that. But yeah, now that I think about it, I don't think I have been a player in Gamma World since 2nd edition. So approximately 1985 or so would have been the last time I was a player. I've run it, but I haven't been a player in almost 40 years. Wow. Talk about a forever DM, right? Forever DMs, you feel my pain. But there you have it, just a quick look at Gamma World 4th edition. I'm going to look at some more of the expansions that they did for 4th edition, because this is far and away my favorite edition of Gamma World. So I will be spending some time on it in the next few weeks. Let me know your thoughts. Please comment below. Let me know what you think of Gamma World 4th. Was it the best? Was it the worst? Who knows? But that's all I've got to say today. On page 121, I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.